4 years ago, Christian Senger launched HolyCityCenter.com, and now it's one of the places to go for news, weather, information, and events here in Charleston. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with him one-on-one. Christian, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Quintin. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. You know, you said this on Facebook on Saturday. Quote, crazy couple of days. Recorded my weekly ABC News 4 segment with Andy Paris and Dave the Queen. Recorded radio spots for Kickin' 92.5 and Mix 96. And held my blog's anniversary party at the Alley, where we raised about $400 for Chase After a Cur and the Alzheimer's Association. Can I ask you, how are you right now?
I'm good. Fully recovered.
Yeah.
And excited. The end of last week was a lot of fun for the reasons you mentioned.
Right.
Being able to do a weekly radio spot, do a TV spot, and then of course the party was fantastic. Had fun. Got to see people who are interested in what I do and everything, but also just raise some money for charity. So feeling really, really good.
Yeah, and you said the Alzheimer's Association. My grandmother has that and dementia. See?
Yep, absolutely. And that's why it was a charity that I personally had some stake in, because my grandmother had it as well. And seeing the effects of it, and a lot of people focus on, and not that they shouldn't,
Right.
but there's all sorts of other charities that people focus on. It doesn't always. Alzheimer's doesn't always have that same spotlight on it,
Right.
because it's a disease that that older people tend to get, and you're like, oh well, they're already older, they've lived their life, but they could be living it much more. They could be living it better, more coherent, and have better times with their family. So for me, it was important seeing someone who had it, and knowing that it doesn't quite have the spotlight on it that some of the other charities do.
We thank you for that.
No, no problem. My pleasure.
Speaking of emotions, I believe this got overlooked, but last week was the 2-month anniversary of Mother Emanuel.
Yeah.
And as you know, 9 people of God were murdered inside Bible study on June 17th. And I believe, like you live right near Mother Emanuel.
Yeah, about a mile away.
Wow.
Yeah, about a mile away.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said this on June 18th, if I'm not mistaken. Quote, the Emanuel AME Church, much like Charleston, survived hurricanes and earthquakes, racism, fire, wars, and more. Both will once again survive and flourish together. This might be a silly question, but 2 months later, do you know how Emanuel has survived thus far?
Well, not being a member of the church itself, but so I'm not there on a day-to-day basis. But just from what I've seen in the media, and having attended rallies and seen the coverage on TV, I mean, the biggest thing is just the strength of the people of that church, emotional strength to get through a tragedy like that, the strength to forgive the shooter, which I think blew a lot of people's minds, myself included. What was it, a day? Not even 2 days after, they're facing this person and saying that I forgive you.
Right.
Just that moment right there is when I knew for sure, even though I already knew, but hearing that and seeing the people talk about that, that's when I really knew that, yeah, they have a special outlook on life and the situation where they're going to be able to get through this stronger and better. And I think the way they reacted spread to the community, where people who weren't necessarily directly involved were like taking their cues from them and said, wow, if they can forgive and they can have this strength, we certainly can.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is just their strength and their belief in God and their faith is what's gotten through.
And you said something on Facebook that the world basically took notice.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, what else have you noticed since June 17th?
Well, things have quieted down, obviously, as far as the national scope.
Right.
But even when some other tragedies have happened, or near tragedies, there's been shootings in other cities since then. There's been one in a movie theater. Right. And people have brought Charleston back up and have said people should look to Charleston and how they responded and how the community rallied around. So I've seen that come back up again. Yeah. But otherwise, as far as the city's concerned, most things are, I think, pretty much back to normal. But I think it's in the back of everybody's mind, and I think people are still, taking a step back in certain situations to reflect on it and be like, okay, we don't want to forget this. We want to continue with this great community vibe. So you'll see charity events and things like that be stronger than they've ever been, because people are still very much rallied around the city and want to keep uplifting it as opposed to focusing on the negative.
And you know, I don't know if you saw this on Facebook and Twitter, but I went to Bible study a week ago.
Yeah.
And the place was packed.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
I mean, you had 2 women from Minnesota sending 86 sweet potato pies down there.
Wow, amazing.
Somebody from Michigan came down just for Bible study.
Yeah. I've heard other stories like that too, whether it's people coming to the church,
Right.
or you know, like the news stations and Post and Courier. I've heard of other papers and other media outlets that have gone through something similar.
Yeah.
You know, like Baltimore would
Right.
send them food.
Right.
You know, hey, we know you're working hard and this is tough for your city.
Right.
So yeah, it's not just Charleston, but outside the city as well. People have really come down and they want to show their support and say, hey, we've been there. And I think I just saw a press release where a woman who helped people in the Sandy Hook shootings, like a psychiatrist or something,
Oh, yeah.
is going to be coming down here. And I apologize, I don't have the details off the top of my head,
about that.
but she'll be coming down here to do something, some kind of event, or try to, you know, talk about how Sandy Hook, Connecticut dealt with it.
Right.
So yeah, it becomes a global community with other places that have dealt with tragedies, and I think they respect and appreciate how Charleston dealt with it.
July 9th, you said this on Facebook, and now I can go to bed. The South Carolina House votes 94-20 to remove the Confederate flag from the State House grounds. The bill now moves to Governor Nikki Haley, who is expected to sign it. Let's walk back down to July 9th.
Okay.
Because I'm wondering, where were your heart and mind when
Sure.
that historic decision was made?
Well, if you told me a few years ago that I would have been staying up until after midnight when I had to work the next day, watching the SC House's like live webcam,
Right.
I would have thought you were crazy. But yeah, sure enough, I'm up late, just trying to see the vote, understanding the process. Me personally, before the tragedy,
Right.
just didn't quite understand the whole Confederate flag thing, and I'm not a son of the South, so that's part of it. And I understand some people's stance on it, but I never thought it had a place, you know, out in front of a government building like it did.
Okay.
So me personally thought it should have come down, and especially after the tragedy.
Oh,
And so it was frustrating to watch the process of government working, which can sometimes be slow and painful. So watching it, I'm like, how is this taking so long? And why are they doing this and that? But when it came down, when they made the decision that, yeah, okay, we're going to pass this along, and we knew that Nikki Haley was going to sign it.
Right.
It was emotional, especially in the wake of the shootings. I had pride in the process of the people who fought for it and actually made it happen. A little frustrated because of some of the people, you know, hearing their arguments and things during the political process. But all in all, you know, the government worked for once where they listened to the majority of people. They did it. They got it done. And I was tired but happy I'd stayed up to see that moment.
Yes.
And the moment itself of the flag coming down was even more emotional. Being able to watch it on, unfortunately I wasn't there, but seeing it on TV and hearing the cheers and just thinking of that historical moment.
Describe to me the following one word. One word, that is.
One word, that's tough for me.
It is, right? The Charleston mayoral race.
The mayoral race. Crowded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crowded, and I don't think anyone's really set themselves apart quite yet. So we'll see what happens over the coming months with interviews and debates. I think it's crowded, and no one has really distanced themselves or set themselves apart.
Mayor Joe Riley.
Wow. In one word, Mayor Joe Riley. Historic, I think, would be good for him. You know, he's been here for 40 years.
Right.
And a lot of the decisions and things he's done for the city are historic.
Right.
He has been a driving force behind what the city is today.
Yes. Tyree Gatson.
Hopeful is a thing I think is a word I think of when I see him. You know, something tragic happened to this child, but every time I see him on the news, big smile, super positive. I know you've seen him in person.
Right.
So I'm hopeful for him. And, you know, for myself, if something were ever to happen to me, that if I could see a child who's, 6 years old, 5 years old?
5, yeah.
You know, that he can have such a positive attitude, you know, so it makes myself hopeful for him, myself, and anybody who has to go through something like that.
John McKissick.
Legend. Football legend. I mean, how could he not be? He's got more victories on any level of football, college, high school, pros. I mean, just an amazing thing what he's done in Somerville.
The 10th-year anniversary of the Ravenel Bridge.
That was, for one word, it was it was amazing to me that it's only been 10 years, and it's such an iconic symbol of Charleston. When you look at merchandise, when you look at pictures, when someone's like, if they're going to take one picture in a magazine or a website and say, this is Charleston, a lot of the times the bridge is incorporated. So it's amazing that in such a short amount of time, just a decade, it's become like the symbol of Charleston, which is pretty cool.
HolyCityCenter.com. HolyCityCenter.com.
That's right. Oh, man. Proud. I'm proud of what I've done with it, and where I'm hoping to go with it. You know, there's been some stumbles and things, but I think for the most part, people in the community view it as a positive entity, whether it's providing info or reaching out or just promoting the city that we all love. So I'm proud of where it is right now.
Well, Mayor Christian Senger, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Maybe the next mayor race. We'll see.
Thank you,
Thank you, Quinn. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was good.